Hello everyone, hope all of you are keeping well with your family in this COVID-19 period. My name is Sanjit Kumar, Faculty Department of English, Dania University College. I would like to welcome you on today's online lecture. I would like to especially welcome Honours 4th year students, Honours 4th year Department of English, Dania University College. These students, I know it's not possible for you to complete your lesson through online classes clearly, but I can guarantee you this sort of classes would help you to complete your course at home very easily. That's why you all should take part in these online classes, and you will also ask your mates, I mean your friends, to join these online classes. These online classes would also build a bridge between you and us so that both you and us could stay in touch. Dear students, on today's class I would like to discuss with novel. What is a novel? A novel is a fictitious story, especially a fictitious love story containing 50,000 and above words. It has a plot. There are several incidents in the plot are arranged in the logic of cause and effect. There is a local setting, and a novel may be tragic or comic, it may be regional or general, it may be psychological or social. So that's it about a novel in brief. Dear students, on today's class I would like to discuss with 20th century novel. 20th century novel. In 20th century novel you have A Passage to India. So I would like to discuss A Passage to India. Before that, I would discuss the background of The Passage to India. Passage to India is written by E.M. Forster. The full name of the writer is Edward Morgan Forster. He stayed in India 1912 to 1913 and wrote this novel in 1924. In fact, the title of the novel, in one sentence if you ask me to tell you, is The British Domination on the Indians. The whole story revolves centering the Chandrapur in India. Dear students, this is one of the most important novel of E.M. Forster. In fact, he didn't write so many novels. He had written only 5 novels. But this is the best novel. This is the best novel written by E.M. Forster. Time magazine included this novel in its 100 best novels list. So, dear students, in this novel, there are several incidents, several characters. Mainly, the story revolves with 5 characters. They are Adela Quested, Mrs. Moore, Dr. Aziz, Ronnie Hislop, and Mr. Fielding. I would like to discuss about Mrs. Moore. Mrs. Moore is the mother of Ronnie Hislop. She came to India to visit and wanted to marry her son. Along with Mrs. Moore, Adela Quested came to India to see Ronnie Hislop, a city magistrate of Chandrapur, and there Adela Quested wanted to check Mr. Ronnie Hislop out, and she had also confusion whether she should marry Ronnie Hislop or not. She was thinking again and again with this issue, and that was also a confusion in her mind. Firstly, Mrs. Moore and Adela Quested met Mr. Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz is a Muslim doctor. He is a very wonderful doctor and a very renowned person in the area. Everybody loves him and respects him. He is a widower. He is a father of 3 children, and he loves to recite poem and also to write poems. Dr. Aziz found Mrs. Moore taking off her shoes to enter into the Islamic temple. Dr. Aziz got surprised and pleased to see the courtesy of Mrs. Moore, and he thanked Mrs. Moore for good courtesy. And in this way, Dr. Aziz came in touch of Mrs. Moore and Adela Quested. Mrs. Moore advised his son Ronnie Hislop to throw a party in Chandrapur to improve the relation between the British and the Indians. They threw a party. The name of the party is Breeze Party. In the Breeze Party, Only a few Indians are invited. Among those Indians, Dr. Aziz and Mr. Goodbole were invited. Fielding was also there. And in the bridge party, Ronnie Hislop insulted her mom because of mixing with the Indians in this way. Mrs. Moore also humiliated her own son to behave the Indians in this way. So that's the incident. After that, Mrs. Moore and Adela Quested wanted to visit and see India. Both of them told Aziz to move out somewhere so that they could understand about India, and Dr. Aziz also responded to their request, and finally Dr. Aziz took both of them to the Marabar caves. In fact, Mr. Fielding and Mr. Goodbole were also supposed to travel with them, but they couldn't go to Marabar caves because of their delay in catching the train because of Goodbole's morning prayer. Finally, they went to the cave, and there the most important incident happened, revolving which the story of the novel improved. Finally, in the cave, three of them entered into the three different caves. Dr. Aziz wanted to smoke, that's why he entered into a different cave for smoking. On the other hand, Adela Quested was thinking in his mind whether she should marry Ronnie Hislop or not, but she heard a sound. She thought that somebody is attempting to molest her, and she accused Dr. Aziz of molesting her, and that's why she came back from the Marabar caves and accused Dr. Aziz of her molestation. Finally, Dr. Aziz was arrested. With the arrest of Dr. Aziz, India divided into two parts. In one part, all the Indians in favor of Dr. Aziz. In another part, all the British are in favor of Adela Quested. They advised Adela Quested to ask to the judge that Dr. Aziz assaulted Adela Quested, and that's why she accused Dr. Aziz. But finally, Adela Quested started thinking about this issue, and Mr. Fielding was also a nice English person. He went to the Adela Quested and asked her to think about the issue. He told Adela Quest that Dr. Aziz is not that type of man. He is a very good person. He couldn't molest anybody, any girl, any woman. Perhaps you are thinking wrong. Finally, Adela Quested started thinking. Finally she found that it's not molestation. Actually, it was her hallucination. She was hallucinated in the cave and thought that somebody is attempting to molest her. In fact, she thought that Dr. Aziz is attempting to molest her. Finally, before the court, she testified to the court that Dr. Aziz is innocent. He didn't attempt to molest her. The court released Dr. Aziz. In the court ground, Dr. Panna, one of the village doctor, a rival of Dr. Aziz, was supposed to testify against him, and he apologized to Aziz publicly for his wrongdoing, and that's the story. Dear students, Marabar Caves is the main thing in the story of this novel, and revolving Marabar Caves, all the incidents happened. In the meantime, we also find that Ronnie Hislop informed Fielding and Adela Quested that Mrs. Moore died at sea. There was also a rumor that Ronnie Hislop had killed her mom so that she couldn't testify in favor of Dr. Aziz, because she was a very loving lady. She was always on the side of the Indians. That's why Ronnie Hislop killed her mom. So, and in another point, we see that Dr. Aziz is also in bad relation with Fielding, because he thought that Fielding married Adela Quested, his enemy. But finally, Dr. Aziz learned that Fielding didn't marry Adela Quested. In fact, he married Stella, the stepdaughter of Mrs. Moore, from her second marriage. Dear students, it's the main story in brief I described to you, but there are several characters. You will find a lot of characters in this novel. I would like to discuss with these characters in brief. Please concentrate on the lecture, especially on the characters. Dr. Aziz, I have already told you who is Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz is a widower, father of 3 children. He's a Muslim doctor and a very wonderful doctor and renowned person. Everybody loves him, respects him, and he's a very popular figure in the village. I mean Chandrapur. And Fielding is a very loving friend of Dr. Aziz. He is a good person, although he is a British. He always helps the people of Chandrapur. When Aziz faces problem with the case of molestation, Dr. Fielding helped Dr. Aziz to come out of this case. Miss Adela Quest, a young, intelligent, inquisitive and somewhat repressed Englishwoman. She came to India with Mrs. Moore to check Mr. Ronnie Hislop as city magistrate. Is he a good person or not? Finally, she didn't marry Ronnie Hislop. She thought that Ronnie Hislop is not the right person. Mrs. Moore, a very loving woman, although she is a British woman, she loved the Indians and loved the poor. She loved to travel India, she loved to visit India, and she went to the Malabar Caves with Dr. Aziz. Although Adela Quested charged against Dr. Aziz, Mrs. Moore didn't agree with her, and she tried to make understand Adela Quested that Dr. Aziz is not guilty. And when she left for England, she died at sea on ship. There was rumor that his own son Ronnie Hislop killed her as she wanted to testify in favor of Dr. Aziz, an Indian. Ronnie Hislop, a city magistrate, he is a very arrogant person. He never loves Indians, he hates the Indians. He always tries to exploit the common Indian people. Then Mr. Tarleton. Mr. Tarleton is the collector of Chandrapur. Mrs. Tarleton. Mrs. Tarleton is also a lady of arrogance. Like Ronnie Hislop, she also hates the Indians. Mr. McBride. He is also another character in this novel, the superintendent of police in Chandrapur. Although he was a surprising character, he neither on the side of Indians nor on the side of the British. In what sense we can say he is a very good person. Major Calendar, the civil surgeon of Chandrapur, Dr. Aziz's superior. Major Calendar is a boastful, cruel, intolerant and ridiculous person. Professor Goodbole. Professor Goodbole is a professor at Fielding's College. Goodbole is very spiritual and reluctant to become involved in human affairs. Hamidullah, Dr. Aziz's uncle and friend. Once Hamidullah was the friend of Mr. Fielding. Although he was educated in Cambridge, he was very simple in his life. Muhammad Ali, a lawyer friend of Dr. Aziz, who is deeply pessimistic about the English. The Nawab Bahadur, the leading loyalist in Chandrapur, he was very loyal to the British. Dr. Panalal. Dr. Panalal is a local doctor like Dr. Aziz. In fact, he is a rival of Dr. Aziz, and Dr. Panalal wanted to testify against Dr. Aziz before the court, but when the court released Dr. Aziz, Dr. Panalal apologized to Dr. Aziz publicly. Stella Moore, Mrs. Moore's daughter from her second marriage. Stella marries Fielding towards the end of the novel. Ralph Moore. Ralph Moore is the son of Mrs. Moore. He is also son from her second marriage. Miss Derrick, a young English woman who works for a wealthy Indian family and often steals their car Miss Derek is easygoing and has a fine sense of humor, but many of the British at Chandrapur resent her, considering her presence unseemly. Amrita Rao, the lawyer who defends Aziz at his trial. Amrita Rao is high anti-British person. So these are the characters in this novel. Dear students, I think you should concentrate on the characters. If you go through the characters carefully, the novel would be very clear to you, and you could understand the novel very easily, because rule of the characters is very important to understand. What are the specific rules of those characters? There are so many characters in this novel. If I count, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 characters. So what do you think? There are 18 characters in a novel. So you have to have good command over all these characters, and that time it would be easier for you to understand the novel. I have already discussed the story in brief and about the novel and also the characters. Right now I would like to discuss with some question. Dear students, in my earlier time I have already asked you that this is a very important novel for you, and from this novel there are lots of questions you may find in your question paper. So right now I am giving you some question to go through. You don't forget to go through this question. At first you would prepare this question, you would prepare the answers to these questions at your home, and then memorize all these questions carefully. If you face any problems, you feel free to give me a call, leave messages, leave comments, so that it would be easier for you to understand the novel. So right now I am giving you the question. Probable question. I have already told you it's a very long novel and very important novel of E.M. Forster, and also very important for you as you are the final year students. So you should have capability to write the answer to the question of any sort. The question may be set in any angle. You should have that capability to write the answer to the questions. That's why I have prepared some questions for you. If you go through all these questions, you would be able to answer to any question you find in the exam. The questions are, please concentrate on the question and write down the question. I will repeat the question and also discuss with the answer to the question. Discuss the significance of the events in the Marabar caves in a passage to India. Question number 1. Discuss the significance of the events in the Marabar caves in a passage to India. Marabar caves. I have already told you, it's the main thing in the story of the novel, Marabar caves. Revolving Marabar caves, all the story developed. Marabar caves, there are 3 persons in the Marabar caves. Mr. Fielding and Mr. Godbole were supposed to go to the Marabar caves for visiting, but they couldn't go there because of Godbole's morning prayer. They missed the train, but when Mrs. Moore, Dr. Aziz, Miss Adela Quested went to Marabar caves for visiting, they entered into the 3 different caves. Dr. Aziz went to a separate cave for smoking. Mrs. Moore was also visiting in another cave. On the other hand, Adela Quested was in one cave alone. As she was thinking with Ronnie Hislop, she was thinking with her marriage, whether she should marry Ronnie Hislop or not. She got panicked, and for a moment she thought that somebody was attempting to assault her. She thought that it could be none but Dr. Aziz. In fact, Dr. Aziz was innocent, and it was the hallucination of Lady Quested. Adela Quested finally accused Dr. Aziz, and this is the main story, and I think you would be able to prepare the answer to the question, because I have already told you the answer to the question in brief. Question number 2. Forster's portrayal of Indian life in a passage to India. Indian life. What sort of life Indians led in that time? Actually, Indians led a very poor life, but they were very honest in their work. They were very simple. They couldn't understand the British properly. They usually lead their life very simply. Question number 3. Comment on the theme of racial tension in a passage to India. Theme of racial tension in a passage to India. Racial tension. What do you mean by racial tension? Racial tension means the British and the Indians, two different nations. Both of them didn't like each other. Rather, they were hostile in nature. The Indians wanted to attack British, and the British also wanted to attack the Indians. In most cases, we noticed the British wanted to humiliate the Indians. So comment on the theme of racial tension in a passage to India. You must go through this question because this is a very important question for you. Next, question 4. What impression of British officials do you get from a passage to India? What impression? What impression of British officials do you get from a passage to India? British officials. We have already learned the behavior of Ronnie. He is a very arrogant officer. Although he is a city magistrate, no Indians could move into his office. He always humiliates the Indians. He hates the Indians, and he always tried to punish the Indians if he found a little mistake of the Indians. Question number 5. Fosters use of symbolism in a passage to India. Use of symbolism. In fact, there are lots of symbols in a passage to India we get. So, in fact, Fosters used symbolism to express his own ideas. I've already told you, A Passage to India is a novel of Foster's own experience. What he earned in India when he stayed in India. In fact, he stayed in India from 1912 to 1913 and wrote the novel in 1924. And he described all his experiences he got from India. He symbolically he presented the situation of the then India in that novel. Number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6, the character of Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz. In fact, there are 5 characters which are very important in this novel. They are Dr. Aziz, Ronnie Hislop, Mrs. Moore, Adela Quested, and Ronnie Hislop. Among all these characters, Dr. Aziz is the main character. He played his role very wonderfully. He was a renowned doctor in the village Chandapur. He was also a literature loving person, and everybody respected him, loved him for his good behavior, and he was accused of molestation by Adela Quested, but finally he got release from that accusation. So Dr. Aziz is a good creation of Edward Morgan Foster in Passage to India. In A Passage to India, Ronnie Hislop, Mr. Fielding, and Mrs. Moore represent 3 different attitudes to India. Yes, it's true. They are 3 angles. Mr. Fielding, Dr. Aziz, and Ronnie Hislop. 3 different characters. It's true. You will also prepare this answer to this question at your home and must go through. Discuss on the relation between Dr. Aziz and Fielding. Dr. Aziz and Fielding. What's the relation between Dr. Aziz and Fielding? There was a good relationship between Dr. Aziz and Fielding. Fielding was a good friend of Dr. Aziz, and Dr. Aziz loved him a lot. Fielding saved Dr. Aziz from the accusation of molestation filed by Adela Quested, because he made Adela Quest understand that Dr. Aziz is innocent. He is a very good person. He couldn't do such type of thing. Adela Quested convinced and testified before court that Dr. Aziz is innocent, and that was her hallucination. So Dr. Aziz and Fielding are in good terms. At the last moment, we noticed that Dr. Aziz misunderstood Fielding with Mr. Fielding's marriage. He thought that Mr. Fielding married Adela Quested, one of his enemies, But finally, he understood that Dr. Fielding didn't marry Adela Quested, rather she married Stella. Fielding wrote a letter to Dr. Aziz that he didn't marry Adela Quested, rather she married Stella, the stepdaughter of Mrs. Moore from her second marriage. So there was a wonderful relation between Dr. Aziz and Fielding. Dear students, these are the most important probable question for you. I would request you to prepare all the answers to this question and study at your home very carefully, sincerely. If you go through all these questions, I can guarantee you, you will be able to answer to any question from this novel. I would like to repeat the question. You please write down the question. Question number 1, discuss the significance of the events in the Marabar caves in a passage to India. Number 2, Foster's portrayal of Indian life in a passage to India. Number 3, comment on the theme of racial tension in a passage to India. Number 4, what impression of British officials do you get from a passage to India? Number 5, Foster's use of symbolism in a passage to India. Number 6, the character of Dr. Aziz. Number 7, discuss on the relation between Dr. Aziz and Fielding. Okay, dear students, question number 8. In a passage to India, Ronnie Hislop, Mr. Fielding and Mrs. Moore represent 3 different attitudes to India. Discuss. So these are the questions you have to prepare and also memorize, go through at your home, and all these questions will help you to understand the novel. Dear students, I have already told you A Passage to India is a great novel written by E.M. Forster on the theme of British domination in India, in Chandrapur, and the main story revolves centering 5 characters. They are Ronnie Hislop, Mrs. Moore, Dr. Aziz, Adela Quested, and the main story also revolves centering the small incident of Marabar caves. I have already told you that this is the experience of E.M. Forster, what he wrote in this novel. Although it's a novel, because in my definition of novel I have already told you that novel is a fictitious story, often a fictitious love story. Although it's not a fictitious love story, it's in one sense you can say it's a real story. So dear student, let's call it a day. We are about to finishing line on today's lecture. Finally, I would request you to go through the novel seriously at your home. Because Edward Morgan Foster wrote this novel to understand the British domination. As we are the people of Indian subcontinent, so we should go through this novel well. In fact, A Passage to India is set against the backdrop of the British Raj and the Indian independence movement in 1920s. And E.M. Forster highlighted that movement in this novel. Dear students, I hope all of you have enjoyed my class. If you have any queries, any issues with today's lecture, you must inform me over phone or leaving comments. Finally, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to all of my loving students and my respected viewers who took part in this class. Good luck.